bring in early crypto investor Investments Anthony Pompliano, big Bitcoin bull. Okay, I think what Barron's is trying to say is Bitcoin and the rest of crypto is not immune to the broader market herky-jerky movements when the market has sort of jump scare moments. How do you look at that?
Well, first of all, I always laugh when the headline says something may happen, and meteor could hit Earth, etc. But I do think that there's this really important point here where when you see a big drawdown in price, it's not just the drawdown that you should pay attention to. It's how quickly is there a bid to push it back up. And Bitcoin is a very sensitive asset. It's very volatile, and so when the market goes down, Bitcoin went down, but it immediately got bid back up. And so what it shows is that historically in bull markets, we've seen multiple corrections of 30% or more. But in this bull market, we've not seen that. We've seen about 15% drops. And so the volatility to the downside is actually being muted, which tells you that as that price draws down in some of these gyrations, there are a ton of people who want Bitcoin. And so what that suggests is that there's more strength in the Bitcoin bidding. And I think a lot of it is because the traditional safe haven assets are being replaced by Bitcoin. If you go and you talk to anyone under the age of 35 years old, they don't want gold. They want Bitcoin.
And yet, let me just say, gold is hitting a record high day after day after day. And the dollar did have some real strength when the jump scare happened regarding the tariff tantrum on Monday, which appears to have calmed down a lot because the president and the heads of Canada and Mexico have agreed to a pause for the moment. So that said, as you look at the trading action, 105,000 Friday, suddenly then it dives below that. And right now we're at 97,000, 96,000. Is that a buying opportunity?
I think that Bitcoin is always a buying opportunity if you got a long time horizon. And the way that I look at this is gold's kind of like a bicycle. Bitcoin's like a Ferrari, right? They both get you to where you want to go, but there's a whole different speed in Bitcoin compared to gold. And if you look over the past 3, 5, 10 years, Bitcoin has drastically outperformed every other asset. And the reason is because what you're watching is the world is trying to price this new digital decentralized currency. What is it worth? And as more and more pools of capital look at it and say, hey, this may be interesting, all of a sudden people realize, oh, it's not just for individuals, it's not just for public corporations, it's not just for financial institutions, this may be for countries. Well, what would that be worth? And so as those capital pools turn and start to add Bitcoin, all of a sudden that total addressable market grows, and then therefore a finite asset, more supply, or more demand coming in, obviously the price goes up. And so I think that Bitcoin eventually at some point in the future will be worth over $1 million a coin. It's the question is just how quickly will it get there?
$1 million a coin. Well, the new crypto czar, David Sachs, who's a friend of this show, came out yesterday and talked about the roadmap. He started spreading the asphalt down a little bit, some of the cement and the aggregate here. And in the presser, he outlined goals for digital currencies here in the United States. Was there anything that jumped out at you that he said?
I think that people are trying to pick apart every single word that these people are saying. If you just zoom out for a second and look at the macro story, the United States government is now going to embrace Bitcoin. And that's a really important deal because just like when Paul Tudor Jones and Stanley Druckenmiller came out in 2020 and they said, we own Bitcoin, what did that do? It provided career cover fire. Anyone on Wall Street can now go buy Bitcoin and they weren't going to get fired. You were doing what the greats were doing. What the United States is doing is it's providing career cover fire for every country in the world. Because as the United States embraces this, every other country now is going to say, hey, you know what? If it's good enough for the U.S., we should do this too.
Got to give props to BlackRock and Larry Fink. Obviously, his IBIT and quite frankly, Jan van Eck's Bitcoin ETF hodl. All of those guys are legit Wall Street ETF leaders. And when they jumped in, that was certainly really interesting to the average crypto curious investor. Now there's news that BlackRock is looking to expand ETFs in Bitcoin in Europe. Now it's like it's spreading. This is really fascinating. How far does it go?
I had to stop saying in 2020 a saying that I had said for years, which was the virus is spreading. But I think we're now allowed to say that again. And the idea is that Bitcoin is a mental virus. It's a mind virus, right? Once you learn about Bitcoin, you begin to see it in a certain way. You can't stop thinking about it. You begin talking about it. Word of mouth spreads. And so what we're watching is Bitcoin infiltrate Wall Street. And they realized that there was volatility and that there was revenue and there's new customers. And that is the lifeblood of these financial firms. And so now they were able to penetrate into the United States, and you have BlackRock, Fidelity, Van Eck, many others all saying, wait a second, why don't we go and get customers in Europe or in Asia or in Latin America or wherever? And so what I think people have finally figured out is that Bitcoin is a new thing. It has this energy behind it. It has attention. It has new users that you don't have today. And so if you embrace Bitcoin, good things happen to your company, to your portfolio, etc.
To that end, IBIT jumping 128% since its launch about a year ago. So pretty fascinating.